Up to this point right here, we've talked about how to start off a lesson from prelims all the way down into transition. And for a drill class such as right face or any of the other drill lessons, we always transition from the introduction of our lesson into a whole impression. So a whole impression, all a whole impression is us showing the trainees at full speed with command voice what the drill movement is going to look like. When we're doing whole impressions, the verbiage from your lesson plan is going to show you or tell you exactly what they want you to do. For instance, for right face, it tells you in your whole impression verbiage, it tells you to perform this drill movement twice. The first time, it tells you to perform with a frontal view, with attention to your lower body. It tells you to tell the trainees that you represent them, every single one of them, at the exact same time with no exceptions. There's certain lessons that it's going to tell you that there's exceptions for. But this particular drill movement, right face, it says there's no exceptions. But you can always read the whole impression verbiage and it's going to tell you what they want you to do. For the second view, for right face, it's going to tell you to use a side view. It doesn't specify which side, but understand to give my trainees the best view on a side view for right face, I would want to turn towards my trainees. If I perform from this side, I would end up having my back to the trainees as I perform the drill movement, and I don't want that to happen. So for those reasons right there, if it's telling you a side view, pay attention to where you're going to be performing this. Or let's just move along to a little bit more advanced lesson, to the rear march or a transitory drill movement. For to the rear, it tells you that your first view is a side view. Well, I could perform the drill movement here, but if the drill movement's called on my right foot, and I have to perform the drill movement on my right foot, and I have to pivot 180 degrees to the right, that says the majority of the stuff for that drill movement is happening on my right side, so maybe this would be the more impactful view for my trainees to view that lesson. So I have to kind of read between the lines sometimes when figuring out how to do whole impressions. There's going to be lessons, in MTIS, you're not going to be asked to teach every single lesson in the lesson plan. But eventually, in your time as a military training instructor, you're going to be required to teach pretty much all the lessons in your lesson plan. So there comes a point in time where you need to learn how to do these drill movements that you don't know how to do, or how to set up a whole impression for a class that you're not necessarily sure of how to do the drill movement. For that, there's another portion of our lesson in our lesson plan called the expo demo, or it's listed as instruction. If I was uncertain of how to do the whole impression, how to actually perform the drill movement, I could read the expo demo verbiage, and the expo demo verbiage is going to explain to me how to do the drill movements. Then I can look up into my whole impression and figure it out. But let's just stick with right face for now. Once again, our first view, there's two things that I'm required to do. It says show a frontal view, but the two things that I'm required to do, I'm required to say, is I'm required to tell the trainees for this view that I represent every single one of them at the exact same time with no exceptions. I'm also required to tell them a focal point of my body for them to look at. So for this particular drill movement, it talks about pay attention to the lower portion of my body, and then I'm going to give a specific, something I really want them to concentrate on. So trainees, I want you to pay attention to the lower portion of my body, specifically my feet. At that point, we're going to set a stage. So imagine that I'm set up here, I've got my lesson plans in front of me, and my lesson plans are 6 paces away from the flight, and I'm centered on the flight. This is the optimal 6 paces away, centered on the flight, is the optimal teaching view to every trainee, to have every trainee have their best view of what I'm doing. Some instructors think, well, I need to stand off to the side. That way my lesson plans aren't in the way of what my feet are doing. That's not true. The trainees back there, even if they're taking a knee, they can still see you. So because we're centered on the flight, we're giving everybody in the flight the best vantage points to see this drill movement. So for that reason, I want to be directly behind my LPs, and then I'm going to go through my verbiage and I'm going to set a stage. So what a stage means is I get locked in and I get ready to perform the drill movement, and I'm going to pause a minute. So let's just run through how the first view of the whole impression is going to look. I'm going to say, trainees, I can't expect you to perform this drill movement unless I first show you how to perform this drill movement. For this first view, I want you to understand I represent every single one of you at the exact same time with no exception. I want you to pay attention to the lower portion of my body, specifically what my feet do. Right? So understand, as I perform that drill movement, after I set all my verbiage, I locked into my stage and I took a moment. And in that moment, I'm thinking of all the things I need to do. I need to have good command voice. I need to make sure that I'm performing the drill movement sharply. I need to make sure that my upper body stays at attention, meaning my thumbs are along the seam of my trousers and they don't come off. I'm thinking about count 2 of the drill movement, bring my heels together with snap, all the stuff that goes into making that first view, that first impression for those trainees, make it look solid, make it look like that's something that they want to do. Now I go into the second view. Remember I said there's 2 views, and it says that in our whole impression. For this second view, it tells us it wants a side view. Now I still have to go over the exact same verbiage. Now it says for the second view, you have to still tell the trainees you represent everyone in the flight at the exact same time with no exception. And then this time for the second view, it says to have them focus on the upper portion of your body. So once again, I'm going to be more specific than that. So I'm going to tell them to focus on the upper portion of my body, specifically what my hands do. And then I'm going to perform the drill movement with military bearing, snap, and I'm going to have solid command voice when I do this. Trainees, I'm sure while you were looking at the lower portion of my body during my first view, you probably noticed that the upper portion of my body was doing something as well. So I'm going to perform this drill movement for you one more time. I still represent every single one of you at the exact same time with no exceptions. This time, however, I want you to look at the upper portion of my body, specifically what my hands do. Right? And from there, I can break my stage and transition down into the next portion of the lesson, which it would be the requirement portion.